Admiral James stood at the wide window of Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. 20 years of service had taught him to treasure these quiet moments. They rarely lasted long. As if responding to his thoughts, the peace shattered. Red warning lights flashed across every screen in the command center, and the emergency alert system blared to life. "Sir," Lieutenant Rogers rushed to his side, tablet in hand. "We're detecting an unknown energy signature at the edge of our solar system. It's massive." The Admiral turned from the window, his weathered face reflecting in the nearest monitor. "Show me." The main screen lit up with a view of space just beyond Pluto's orbit. At first, there was nothing but stars. Then, like a curtain being pulled aside, a section of space rippled and tore open. Through this massive portal emerged ships, hundreds of them. They were sleek, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Get me a full scan," James ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation, "and contact every major military command center. Now." Before anyone could act on his orders, every screen in the command center flickered and went dark. When they came back to life, they showed the same image: a group of alien beings seated in what appeared to be a grand council chamber. The creature in the center spoke, its words automatically translated into English by their AI systems. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Council, governing body of the 200 most advanced civilizations in this sector of the galaxy." The being's voice was smooth, almost mechanical in its perfection. "We have watched your development with great interest." James felt his muscles tense. In his experience, powerful entities watching with great interest rarely ended well for the ones being watched. "Your species has reached a crucial development stage," the alien continued. "You have mastered basic space travel, developed primitive AI systems, and shown potential for further growth. As per galactic law, you now qualify for Council protection and guidance." Lieutenant Rogers whispered, "Sir, they're broadcasting this message worldwide. Every device capable of displaying video is showing this." James nodded, his eyes fixed on the screen. He'd expected first contact would come eventually, but something in the Council speaker's tone set off warning bells in his mind. However, the alien's voice took on a harder edge. "Such protection comes with responsibilities. The Council requires an annual tribute of 30% of your planet's total resources, including but not limited to minerals, water, biological materials, and energy production." The command center erupted in shocked murmurs. James remained silent, his jaw clenched. "This tribute ensures your world's security and grants you access to the basic Council technologies. You have one standard month to prepare your first payment." The alien's massive eyes blinked slowly. "Should you refuse, we will be forced to consider Earth a rogue planet, subject to appropriate corrective measures." The screen showed images of planets being mined to their cores, worlds wrapped in energy fields that seemed to drain them of resources. The message was clear: "We await your response, humans. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Admiral James turned to face his crew. Each face showed the same mix of fear and anger he felt inside, but he hadn't spent 2 decades defending Earth to bow to threats now. "Get me the president," he ordered, "and contact every major scientific institution. I want to know everything about their technology based on what we just saw." He paused, looking back at the window where the sun had now fully set. These Council members might have forgotten what it's like to fight for survival, but humanity hasn't. And if they think we'll simply hand over our world's resources because they demanded it. He left the sentence unfinished, but everyone in the room understood. Humanity had faced extinction-level threats before, from nature, from itself, from the very challenges of surviving on their harsh but beautiful planet. Each time, they'd not just survived but emerged stronger. The Galactic Council was about to learn that humans didn't take kindly to bullies, no matter how advanced they claimed to be. The United Nations Emergency Chamber had never been so full. 3 days after the Council's demand, leaders from every nation sat shoulder to shoulder, their usual political differences forgotten in the face of this cosmic threat. The room's massive screens showed military assessments, resource calculations, and endless streams of data about the alien ships still hovering beyond Pluto. Dr. Wilson walked to the center of the chamber, her simple white lab coat standing out among the formal suits and military uniforms. She carried no papers, no tablet, just a small device that projected a hologram of the Council's ships. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I've analyzed the Council's technology based on our scans. What I've found might surprise you." She pressed a button, and the hologram changed to show energy readings. Their ships follow perfectly logical design patterns. Too perfect, actually. Admiral James leaned forward in his seat. He'd worked with Dr. Wilson before and knew she wouldn't waste their time. "Explain it simply, Doctor." She nodded. "Imagine building a house. These aliens build every house exactly the same way, following the same blueprint without any changes. Humanity, we experiment. We try new things. Sometimes we fail, but when we succeed, we create something totally new." The hologram shifted to show comparison charts. "Look at their energy weapons. They're incredibly powerful, yes, but they haven't changed their basic design in what we estimate to be thousands of years. It's like they found one solution and stopped looking for others." The Chinese president spoke up. "Are you saying they're not as advanced as they appear?" "No," Dr. Wilson corrected. "They're exactly as advanced as they appear, but they're predictable. Their technology evolved in a straight line. Humanity's path looks more like a tree, with branches going in all directions." She pressed another button, and a hologram showed Earth's various energy technologies: solar, wind, nuclear, fusion experiments, and dozens of other attempts. "We try everything, even ideas that seem crazy." The Council, they'd never have invented half of what we use daily because it wouldn't fit their logical progression. The room burst into discussions. Admiral James raised his hand for silence. "Doctor, what about their threat? Could we fight them in a traditional battle?" "No." She showed a simulation of Earth's forces against the Council's fleet. The result was devastating. But that's not how we should think about this. While analyzing their transmission, I noticed something odd about their quantum signatures. The hologram zoomed in on a complex pattern of energy waves. They use quantum communication, but only in the most basic way. We've been experimenting with quantum entanglement in ways they'd consider impossible, because we didn't know it was supposed to be impossible. The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. The Russian president stood up. "So we have technology they don't understand." "Better," Dr. Wilson smiled. "We have ways of thinking they don't understand. Their demand for resources, it's not just about materials. They want to control us before we become too unpredictable." Admiral James stood, his face determined. "Then we show them just how unpredictable humanity can be. Doctor, how quickly can you prepare a demonstration of our quantum technologies?" "Give me a week, but we'll need more than just technology." She looked around the room. "We need to show them everything that makes us human. Our art, our music, our countless different cultures. Show them why our chaos is our greatest strength." The UN Secretary General nodded slowly. "We have 1 month before their deadline. Let's use it to prepare not just a defense, but a demonstration of everything humanity has to offer." He stood, addressing the room. "We'll show the Council that Earth doesn't need their protection. We need our freedom to keep growing, learning, and inventing in our own unique way." As the leaders began organizing their response, Dr. Wilson caught Admiral James's eye. They both knew that the next few weeks would determine not just Earth's fate, but perhaps the future of galactic civilization itself. The Council was about to learn that demanding tribute from humans was their first major mistake. and possibly their last. The next 2 weeks transformed the old Olympic Stadium into something that had never existed before on Earth. Under the warm summer sun, thousands of workers moved like ants, building displays and setting up demonstration areas. Dr. Wilson stood at the center of it all, directing teams with the precision of a conductor leading an orchestra. The quantum communication array goes there. She pointed to a circular platform rising from the ground. And make sure the holographic projectors are calibrated perfectly. We only get one chance at this. Admiral James walked up beside her, looking over the organized chaos below. You know, when you first suggested turning our response into a showcase, I thought you were crazy. He smiled slightly. I'm starting to think you might be crazy in exactly the right way. That's humanity's specialty, isn't it? Dr. Wilson checked something on her tablet. Being crazy enough to try the impossible. Around them, the stadium had been divided into sections. One area showed Earth's various energy technologies, from advanced fusion reactors to experimental zero-point energy devices. Another displayed cultural achievements, art, music, and dance from hundreds of different traditions. There was even a food court featuring dishes from every corner of the globe. But the centerpiece was Dr. Wilson's quantum demonstration area. Here, they would show the Council something they'd never seen before, human-style quantum engineering. The backup plan is ready too, Admiral James said quietly, making sure no one could overhear. If things go wrong, we can have our defense systems online in seconds. Dr. Wilson nodded. They both knew that while they hoped for peace, they had to prepare for war. The last 2 weeks hadn't just been about preparing demonstrations. Hidden beneath the stadium's new attractions were some of humanity's most advanced weapons. Team leaders, gather up, Dr. Wilson called out. The section leaders, scientists, artists, chefs, and military officers formed a circle around her. Tomorrow we do our first full rehearsal. Remember, we're not just showing off. We're telling Earth's story. A young scientist raised her hand. But what if they don't care about our story? What if they just want our resources? Then we show them why taking our resources would be their biggest mistake, Admiral James answered. Every demonstration here is also a warning. Our fusion technology, it powers cities and ships. Our quantum communications, they can also disrupt their fleet systems. Even our art shows how quickly we can adapt and create new solutions. Dr. Wilson brought up a hologram of the stadium. Each section flows into the next. We start with basic science, showing how we took different paths than they did. Then we move to applied technology, then to culture and creativity. Finally, she smiled. We show them our biggest advantage, our ability to combine all these things in ways they've never imagined. The team leaders nodded, excitement visible on their faces. They had spent years, decades even, being the best in their fields. Now they would represent not just their institutions or countries, but all of humanity. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the stadium, Admiral James watched the teams return to work with renewed energy. You know, he said to Dr. Wilson, when I joined the military, I never thought I'd help plan a science fair for aliens. Not a science fair, she corrected him. This is humanity's way of saying we won't be bullied. We're offering them a choice. Work with us as equals, or learn why forcing us to be enemies would be a terrible mistake. Above them, the first stars became visible in the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, the Council's ships waited, probably expecting Earth to either submit or futilely resist. They had no idea that humanity was about to change the rules of the game entirely. The next 2 weeks would determine everything. But for now, as the lights came on across the stadium, illuminating humanity's achievements, both the Admiral and Dr. Wilson felt something they hadn't expected: hope. The Council representatives arrived exactly 1 month after their first message. Their ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like silver arrows, landing with perfect precision in the designated area outside the Olympic Stadium. The crowd of world leaders, scientists, and military personnel watched in tense silence as the ship's doors opened with a soft hiss. The aliens emerged, tall, elegant beings with movements so precise they seemed almost mechanical. Their leader, whom they called the High Speaker, stood nearly 8 feet tall, its iridescent robes catching the morning sunlight. "Welcome to Earth." Admiral James stepped forward, Dr. Wilson at his side. "We've prepared our response to your request." The High Speaker's large eyes blinked slowly. "You have gathered your tribute, then?" "No," Dr. Wilson said clearly. "We've prepared something better. Please, follow us." The council members exchanged glances, but followed their human hosts into the stadium. The first display activated as they entered. A massive hologram showing the history of human space exploration. "Primitive technology," one council member muttered. "Watch closely," Dr. Wilson suggested. The hologram shifted, showing how humans had progressed from simple rockets to ion drives, from basic satellites to quantum communication systems. "Notice something interesting about our development path." The High Speaker studied the display. "It is chaotic, inefficient." "Is it?" Admiral James pressed a button, and new holograms appeared, showing multiple paths of technological development. "While you perfected one path, we explored thousands. Some failed. Some succeeded in unexpected ways. But each attempt taught us something new." They moved through the stadium sections. In the Energy Pavilion, Dr. Wilson demonstrated Earth's variety of power sources. "We don't just rely on one perfect solution. We adapt, combine, innovate." The council members showed their first signs of genuine interest when they reached the quantum communication display. Dr. Wilson activated the system, creating a stable quantum link across distances the council had deemed impossible. "This defies our mathematical models," one council scientist said, their composed facade cracking slightly. "Because you assumed there was only one right way to do it," Dr. Wilson explained. "We tried the impossible because we didn't know it was impossible." The tour continued through cultural displays, art that combined ancient techniques with modern technology, music that blended styles from across the globe, food that fused different traditions into something entirely new. Finally, they reached the stadium center. Admiral James turned to face the High Speaker. "You came here expecting tribute. Instead, we offer you something more valuable: partnership." Dr. Wilson activated the final display, showing the potential of combining council technology with human innovation. "Your civilizations have achieved incredible things through careful, logical progress. We offer a different perspective, the ability to see possibilities you might have missed." The High Speaker was silent for a long moment. "You refuse our demand for tribute." "We refuse to be treated as inferiors," Admiral James stated firmly. "But we offer to share everything you've seen today. Our technology, our art, our way of thinking, as equals." "Your species is young," another council member protested. "Barely space capable." "Young doesn't mean weak," Dr. Wilson countered. "It means we're still growing, still dreaming, still crazy enough to try things that shouldn't work, until they do." The High Speaker studied them with an unreadable expression. "And if we insist on tribute?" Admiral James smiled slightly. "Then we demonstrate other human innovations we haven't shown you today, ones we'd rather not use, but will if forced." The threat was clear but delivered with perfect politeness. Around the stadium, hidden defense systems remained ready, though no one mentioned their existence. "You offer partnership," the High Speaker said slowly, "or resistance." "We offer progress," Dr. Wilson corrected. "The question is, will you progress with us, or try to hold us back? Choose carefully." Humanity's greatest achievements often came when someone told us something was impossible. The fate of Earth hung in the balance as they awaited the Council's response. But for the first time since the aliens arrived, the humans weren't afraid. They were ready. The High Speaker's request to examine Earth's quantum communication system more closely surprised everyone. For the past hour, A group of council scientists had been studying Dr. Wilson's equipment with increasing amazement and confusion. "This should not work," one of them said, their long fingers moving over the control panel. "The quantum entanglement patterns are chaotic, random, yet they achieve perfect synchronization." Dr. Wilson watched them with barely hidden satisfaction. Sometimes the best path between 2 points isn't a straight line. The council scientists huddled together, speaking in their own language. Their usual calm composure had cracked, replaced by animated gestures and what seemed like heated debate. The high speaker observed all this with growing interest. "Tell me, Dr. Wilson," the high speaker said, "how did you discover this method?" "We failed," she replied simply. "We failed hundreds of times. Each failure taught us something new, showed us a different possibility. When traditional quantum entanglement didn't work at the distances we wanted, we started experimenting with what we called quantum chaos theory." Admiral James stepped forward. "That's how humans solve problems. We try everything, even ideas that seem ridiculous. Sometimes, especially the ideas that seem ridiculous." The high speaker turned to one of their own scientists. "Could this method be applied to our existing systems?" "It would require completely rebuilding our quantum network," the scientist replied. 3,000 years of established communication infrastructure would need to be reimagined. "Now you understand," Dr. Wilson said. "We're not just offering you our technology. We're offering you a new way of thinking." The revelation seemed to ripple through the council members. Some looked troubled, others fascinated. A younger council member stepped forward, their eyes bright with excitement. "The humans' method could revolutionize everything," they said. "Not just communications. Their chaos theory could be applied to energy systems, space travel, even our biological enhancement programs." "It would be dangerous," an older council member warned. "Unpredictable. It could destabilize everything we've built." "Or it could help us grow again," the younger member countered. "When was the last time we truly discovered something new? Something unexpected?" The high speaker raised a hand for silence, then turned to study the stadium's displays again. The history of human progress played out before them. From cave paintings to quantum computers, from simple tools to space stations. "Your species," the high speaker said slowly, "achieved in thousands of years what took others millions. We assumed this meant you were reckless, dangerous. Perhaps we were wrong." Dr. Wilson nodded. "We are dangerous and reckless, but that's not always a bad thing." "Show me more," the high speaker commanded, but the tone had changed from demanding to curious. "Show me something else you've created through this chaos." Admiral James and Dr. Wilson exchanged glances. This was the moment they'd hoped for. Genuine interest rather than dismissal or hostility. They led the council members to a new section of the stadium, where a team of scientists had set up what looked like a small star floating in midair. "This is our newest fusion containment system," Dr. Wilson explained. "We couldn't create a perfect magnetic bottle like your people did, so we tried something different. We let the plasma flow in controlled chaos patterns. It's less efficient on paper, but in practice. It uses 40% less energy than our systems," a council scientist finished, reading the displays with astonishment. "How did you even think to try this?" "Someone said it was impossible." Admiral James smiled. "That's usually when humans do their best work." The high speaker watched the miniature star dance in its chaotic containment field. For the first time, the humans saw something new in the ancient being's eyes. Wonder. The revolution had begun, not with weapons or warfare, but with the simple human tendency to try the impossible. The attack came without warning. As the high speaker examined another human innovation, alarms blared throughout the stadium. Admiral James's tablet lit up with urgent messages. "Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel," he announced, his voice tense. "They're not council vessels, at least not the ones we were expecting." The high speaker's calm facade cracked. "The first species. They're not supposed to be here." Dr. Wilson looked up from her own displays. First species. The oldest members of the council. The young council member explained quickly. They don't like change. Above the stadium, the sky darkened as massive ships appeared. Ancient vessels that made the council's regular ships look tiny in comparison. Their surfaces were covered in patterns that seemed to hurt the eyes if you looked at them too long. They're here for your technology, the High Speaker said grimly. They've been watching our transmissions. They won't allow such unpredictable elements to exist in their ordered galaxy. Admiral James straightened his uniform. Well, they're about to learn why unpredictable can be good. He pressed a button on his tablet. All defense stations, activate. Authorization code, Chaos Protocol. Around the stadium, hidden panels slid open. What had appeared to be decorative structures transformed into defense platforms. The first species ships launched their first attack, beams of pure energy that should have vaporized everything they touched. Should have. Instead, the beams hit an invisible barrier and scattered into harmless light. Dr. Wilson smiled as the first species ships launched attack after attack, each one failing to penetrate Earth's defenses. Quantum shield technology, she explained to the astonished council members, based on the same chaotic principles as our communication system. Your logical shields try to block energy. Ours redirects it randomly. Not very efficient, but practically impossible to overcome. The first species ships pressed their attack, growing more desperate with each failure. Then Admiral James gave the order, show them our teeth. Earth's defense platforms activated. Instead of traditional energy weapons, they fired beams that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Where they hit the first species ships, sections of hull simply disappeared, transported randomly across space by targeted quantum displacement. Stop this at once. A new voice boomed across all communication channels. A figure appeared on the stadium's screens, a being that looked ancient beyond measure, its form barely holding together. You dare use such dangerous, uncontrolled methods. Dangerous. Admiral James replied calmly. No more dangerous than threatening a peaceful planet. Stand down, or we'll show you just how creative humans can be when we're threatened. The first species leader's voice shook with rage. High Speaker, you cannot allow this. These humans, they'll destroy the order we've maintained for millions of years. The order you've maintained, the young council member stepped forward, has become stagnation. Look at what they've achieved. They're not destroying order, they're showing us how to grow again. The first species ships launched another wave of attacks. This time, Earth's defenses didn't just stop them. They turned the energy back on itself, creating a cascade of quantum disruptions that left the ancient ships powerless. Final warning. Admiral James announced, retreat, or we'll be forced to demonstrate our more aggressive innovations. I don't think you want to see those. For a long moment, the stadium was silent except for the hum of energy fields and defense systems. Then, slowly, the first species ships began to pull back. This isn't over, their leader warned. The galaxy needs order. No, the High Speaker said firmly. The galaxy needs balance, order and chaos, working together. Perhaps that's what we've been missing all these years. As the first species ships retreated, Dr. Wilson turned to Admiral James. Think they'll be back? Probably, he smiled grimly. But next time, they'll find humanity even stronger. After all, their attack just gave us dozens of new ideas to try. The crisis had passed, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to change, whether the first species liked it or not. 1 year after the first species' failed attack, Earth looked very different. The Olympic Stadium had been transformed into the Galactic Exchange Center, where scientists and artists from hundreds of worlds came to learn and share ideas. Today, its halls were packed for a special ceremony. Admiral James stood at the podium, watching representatives from over 50 younger council species file into their seats. Dr. Wilson sat in the front row. busy explaining something to a group of alien scientists who followed her every word with intense interest. A year ago, Admiral James began his speech. The Council demanded tribute from Earth. Today, we're signing a very different kind of agreement. The High Speaker stepped forward, their once rigid movements now showing hints of human-like flexibility. The formation of the new Galactic Federation marks the end of the old Council system. No more tributes, no more demands. Instead, we create a true partnership of species. Screens around the hall showed similar ceremonies taking place on other worlds. The first species had withdrawn to their ancient territories, but their influence was fading. More and more civilizations were embracing Earth's philosophy of controlled chaos and creative innovation. In 1 year, Dr. Wilson took the podium. We've seen advances that the old Council thought would take centuries. Mixed teams of human and alien scientists have made breakthroughs in everything from space travel to medicine. But more importantly, we've learned from each other. She gestured to the hall's central display, where a new ship design rotated slowly. It combined the elegant efficiency of Council engineering with human creativity, and it could travel twice as far as anything built before. The first species warned that chaos would destroy us. The High Speaker added, "Instead, it has made us stronger. Humanity showed us that progress isn't just about perfecting what we know. It's about daring to try what we think is impossible." Admiral James smiled as he watched a group of young aliens practicing Earth dance moves in one corner, while human scientists learned alien meditation techniques in another. This was what victory looked like, not conquest, but connection. "But our work isn't done," he continued. "The galaxy is vast, and there are still many challenges ahead. The first species aren't the only ones who fear change. That's why today's agreement includes something new: the Innovation Exchange Program." Dr. Wilson activated another display, showing maps of training centers being built across Earth and other worlds. Every species has something to teach and something to learn. Humans will travel to other worlds to share our creative approach, while we learn from the careful, proven methods of older civilizations. Together, we'll find the perfect balance between chaos and order. The High Speaker raised their hands. "Let it be recorded that on this day, the galaxy entered a new age. And it began because one young species dared to say no to tradition and yes to possibility." As the assembly erupted in applause, Admiral James looked out at the crowd. Humans and aliens chatted like old friends, sharing jokes and ideas. In 1 year, they'd gone from facing conquest to leading a galactic renaissance. "Ready for what comes next?" Dr. Wilson asked, joining him at the podium. "You mean exploring unknown space, solving impossible problems, probably starting a few diplomatic incidents with our crazy ideas?" He grinned. "Sounds like a normal day for humanity." Above the hall, through the transparent ceiling, ships of all designs moved through Earth's sky. Each one represented a different species, a different way of thinking. But they all moved together in a beautiful dance of order and chaos, proof that the greatest achievements come when different paths join to form something new. The first species had been right about one thing: humanity had changed everything. But change, as Earth had always known, was just another word for growth, and the galaxy was finally growing again, one impossible achievement at a time.